so too you must also be prepared. For at an hour you do not expect, the Son of Man will come. This is the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
One of the things I always do after Sunday, maybe Sunday night, Monday, I start to, get on my phone and start to Google and look at things for the following week. What are the scripture passages? Last week was the Feast of Christ the King, so I'll look up different ideas and maybe even try to get like a service that was done from either another religion or the Roman Catholic Church. This past week I was looking at something, and I was a young priest. It was the first Sunday of Advent, get some ideas. And this guy is talking about how Advent is, he starts off with saying, imagine if you were going to die on Christmas Day, and you were supposed to spend your entire Advent season preparing, knowing that you were going to die on Christmas Day. Like how much you would prepare and get ready for the coming of the Lord, whether or not you were going to make it or not. You think of this passage that we read today about, one is taken and one is not, you know what I mean? So you're sort of you're hanging out with somebody and you're in the field and he's taken and you're not. You go, hey, how come I can't go? But I look at it and going is that really what Advent is about? Let's pretend like we're going to die on Christmas Day, so let's get all fired up about Advent because, oh my God, we want to make sure that we're prepared. I was like, oh my God. So I, forget that and I try to find something else. It's very interesting when you look at that passage. It almost seems as if there's something inherent in human beings that's negative, that's ready to be fault-finding, to feel guilty, to feel bad about something, again, if I were to say, there's two people here who could be more loving, and you're going, I wonder who the other person is, right? So we're right there to, get on ourselves about, I could do better, I'm not doing enough, not quite cutting it. And, they say that when we're little, we've all experienced being, getting in trouble, right? And we have to, we're somehow punished or whatever. I don't know when you were growing up, if you did something wrong or bad. We used to have a thing where you had to go in the corner. There was this corner by the laundry room, right? So if you were bad, you had to stand in the corner, which is kind of shaming, I guess. And of course, there would always be whoever would be in the corner, my brother or my sister, I walk by how you doing over there in the corner, I'm on my way to get some Pop-Tarts, maybe a little Seal Test ice cream, And of course, they would turn around. When you were in the corner, they would give you the jab. So there's always that sense, but it's funny, when we're kids, a lot of times we do something, we don't even really know that we're doing anything wrong. We're just being a kid. One day when I think it was 7 or 8 years old, my friend and I, we had this grand idea. We started, I don't even know how it started, but we started to unscrew the light bulbs from the Christmas, the outside is the bushes and the shrubs. And we would take off the yellow and the red and the orange Christmas bulb, and we started smashing them in the driveway. And we were just having a grand old time. I don't want to give you any ideas. We were just smashing them, and the glass was flying, and it was red and green and blue and yellow. And we were just having a ball. I mean, it was just so much fun, and not really even thinking about it. And then along comes his father. He pulls up in his Ford Maverick, he pulls up, and he gets out of the car, and he's just so with, what on earth are you guys doing? And all of a sudden in that moment, it's we're bad, we did something wrong, we're in trouble. Now go get the broom and sweep it up, right? Of course, I was I guess I gotta go. I'll see you later. And well, we didn't have internet. We had rotary phones. I'm sure by the time I drove my bicycle back to my parents' house, they already found out what happened. So, obviously on some level, we have to, we do things we have to learn. We have to be socialized, not to interrupt. I remember Rachel coming home one day from kindergarten, and she wasn't that upset, but I said, how did it go? She goes, oh, I had to go in a land of no neighbors today for talking too much. She had to go to the land of no neighbors. So I guess, you learn somehow that we do things that we shouldn't do. But there's something in that is sort of like also shaming, and we feel guilty and we did something bad. A lot of times we're not even realizing that we're doing anything wrong. So I don't know whether that gets incorporated into being human, is this feeling of kind of being bad and not quite cutting it. And yet, it's interesting when you think of awakening, like we're supposed to awaken during Advent. I wonder if the idea of awakening is awakening to understanding what does it mean to be a human being, to become conscious, to become aware. Now, certainly when you look at awakening, it also could be like, I want to be aware of how am I coming across, right? We've all met people who dominate a conversation, or they interrupt you, they don't let you give you a chance to get a word in edgewise. So there is a certain awakening in becoming conscious of how am I occurring to other people. But there's a lot of different aspects to awakening. There's awakening and understanding what it means to be human. Now, science has discovered that while, yes, there is evolution and we've evolved, right? There is a point where there seems to be an intentional, intelligent, divine intervention into being human. A divine, intelligent intention for each one of us. You ever think about that? You ever think that God deliberately, intelligently, intentionally created you? Now, God wants you to be here. And you're here for a reason. You're here for a purpose. Specifically, we hear those passages. Before you were formed in the womb, I knew you. Every hair on your head is counted. This intimacy of God knowing you specifically and uniquely and deliberately, intelligently, and intentionally wants you to be here. And that what is inherent in being human is this divine spark, this divine light. In the Gospel of Thomas, it talks about, where do we come from? Where, if someone says to us, where do we come from? What are we supposed to say? And Jesus says, tell them that you come from the light. That you come from the light. And he doesn't say necessarily you come from the light. We come from the light. So that if you think of all of us, there's no separation. If you were to take what makes up each one of us, it's very similar. The molecules, the atoms, we're human. I thought about it, if I were to take like a carton of orange juice or something like that, and I pour orange juice into each container. We had a blue cup and a red cup and a yellow cup and a purple cup, right? So it'd be like different colors. But what's inside every cup is orange juice from the same container. So that when we look at the living God, and this God is light, this God is energy, this God is love, that we come from that, and that we're all one with that, and that we're all a part of that. That the idea of human beings is we need to come together. This conflict and separation that we can experience as being human. The origin of fear and anger is being hurt. on a feeling cycle. First you're hurt, and then that ages into anger and also fear. So that when you look at like what goes on in the planet with the anger and the fear that goes on, it's basically saying we're like a hurting humanity. And this hurt is manifesting in so much conflict in the world. But we need to be able to come together as human beings and remind ourselves we're all made of the same stuff. Now, when you think of being human, and you think of yourself as coming from this divine light, now, do you hear that? Like, we have a tendency to identify ourselves with our body, and I know I say this a lot, but to really tap into, you are a being of light. You are an energy, you are a spiritual energy living in this body, and that spiritual energy is very similar to everybody else. So if we could do that, where we're all just like these beams of light here. You ever see that in the movie The Shack? You see the movie The Shack? Where they're all out there and there's all these, they look like little lightning bugs or something like that. There's all these lights. You know, I thought that was such a great example of that kind of like who we are when we leave our bodies. That you're a being of light, you come from the light, and you're returning to the light. But that while we're here to live in the majesty and the dignity of being human, somehow in the midst of being human and entering into who you are, you encounter the living God. In the Gospel of Thomas it says, if you allow to come forth what is inside of you will save you. If you do not allow what is inside of you to come forth, what is inside of you will destroy you. Now, not destroy you, but just more of like you remain unconscious. So we have to be able during this Advent to enter into everything that's ever happened to you. The hurts, the betrayals, people that you know and you love who have died, the disappointments. You've got to be reconciled to all of that. You got to have the courage. You know, I love that in AA where they say, you know, one of the steps is taking personal inventory. You know, such a beautiful, powerful program. But one of the key elements in AA of recovery is for the human being to be willing to take a look at themselves, to take a personal inventory of themselves. Maybe that's what Advent is taking a personal inventory of ourselves, entering into everything that has ever happened, and to forgive and to let it go so that we can be present right now in this moment. So when we think of, you got to love yourself. Yeah, all right, you got to love yourself. I think another way of saying it is you have to also accept yourself. You have to accept who you are. Take a good look at that. You know, living in the truth of who you are. And if you enter into it, again in the Gospel of Thomas, if you enter into that, first you're going to be startled, but then you're going to be astonished. You're going to discover how beautiful and magnificent you are as a human being. To live in that. The gospel of Christ can't be fearing going to hell. Oh my God, I'm bad. Focusing on sin and guilt. The gospel of Jesus Christ has to be for you and I to come alive. And how do we come alive? We come alive in our own acceptance of being human. When you look at the divine entering into the human condition, it's almost like the divine is saying to you, I'm entering into you from divinity to humanity so that you as a human being can enter into and understand your own divinity. You come from the light, and you're going to return to the light. So Advent is a season of hope and understanding a light. Maybe our hope this Advent is that God hopes that we come to a self-acceptance and entering into being human. And you know what? When we do that, we're going to accept other people, right? We were talking that time about when you're judging people and you're critical of people. So often the judgment and the criticism is just a projection of our own self-criticism and our own judgment. So maybe one of the greatest gifts we could give to each other is to accept ourselves. You know, Father Teilhard de Chardin talked about, you know, if you're down here on planet Earth, right, you're like, you know, they did this to me and she said that, and how come that didn't happen? You're driving too slow. But if you rise up 1,000 feet and 2,000 feet, you start to see that the Earth is round. So it's round, so there's no sides to take. And it's round, and as we rise up, we start to see, wow, we're all on this planet together to see this oneness. To see this oneness, and same thing with Good Shepherd. You know, I want to say to you, I really feel in my heart that I want to ask myself always one question. What is the best interest of Good Shepherd? So that imagine if everybody here asked themselves one question, what's in the best interest of Good Shepherd? How could I give and how could I contribute? You know, Teddy Roosevelt, one of the greatest presidents, said, every day I wake up and I want to ask myself one question as the president. What's the best thing for America? And presidential historians have said, if every president asked themselves that question, they would be a great president. What's in the best interest of other people? And Teilhard de Chardin goes on to say that after we have mastered the winds and the waves and the tides and gravity, maybe in this self-acceptance and love, we can harness this love for the living God and share that love with each other. And when we do so, we will have rediscovered fire for a second time.